don't just want the news, they want the truth. What others hide, I bring to you with evidence. Politics, corruption, human rights. No filters, no fear, just facts. I don't stop until the system shakes. Welcome to Trending Daily. I'm Makhdoom Shahabuddin. Tonight's episode focuses on one of the most serious military escalations in recent Pakistan Afghanistan history, Operation Ghazab lil Haq, and the broader historical, strategic, and security context behind it. This is not just another border clash. According to Pakistani officials and military leadership, this marks a decisive doctrinal shift from strategic restraint to open and direct retaliation against what Islamabad describes as cross-border aggression and state-backed militancy. Let's unpack this carefully. For more than 4 decades, Pakistan has hosted millions of Afghan refugees. Since the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979, successive waves of Afghan families crossed into Pakistan. At different points, the number exceeded 4 million. These refugees were given access to schools, hospitals, employment opportunities, and in many cases, long-term residency despite Pakistan's own economic pressures. Pakistan also served as Afghanistan's economic lifeline. Through the Afghanistan-Pakistan Transit Trade Agreement, Afghan goods moved through Karachi's ports to global markets. Food, medicine, and essential supplies flowed through Pakistani territory into landlocked Afghanistan. Islamabad's narrative frames this history as decades of humanitarian generosity, what many describe symbolically as bread and salt hospitality. However, Pakistan also highlights a parallel historical grievance. Afghanistan was the only country to oppose Pakistan's admission to the United Nations in 1947. Kabul has consistently refused to formally recognize the Durand Line as the international border. Over time, mistrust became institutional. Fast forward to 2026, the immediate trigger for escalation was a wave of high casualty attacks inside Pakistan during Ramadan. A suicide bombing in Islamabad, an assault in Bajawar district killing security personnel and civilians, additional attacks in border regions. These incidents were claimed by Fitna al-Khawarij Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or TTP. Pakistani officials stated that intelligence assessments traced planners and facilitators to Afghan territory. Islamabad has repeatedly accused the Afghan Taliban of allowing TTP and other militant groups to operate from safe havens inside Afghanistan. For years, Pakistan pursued what it calls strategic patience. It lobbied internationally for engagement with the Taliban government. It facilitated dialogue during the Doha peace process. It supported calls for unfreezing Afghan financial assets. But according to Islamabad, this diplomatic support was met with what it describes as strategic betrayal. Militants receiving safe haven, access to sophisticated NATO-origin weapons, and freedom to plan cross-border attacks. On February 26, 2026, tensions reached a breaking point. Afghan Taliban forces allegedly launched coordinated offensives across sections of the international border. Islamabad responded by transitioning from intelligence-based limited strikes to a full-scale retaliatory campaign, Operation Ghazab lil Haq. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Defense Minister Khaja Asif signaled a doctrinal shift. Pakistan, they indicated, would no longer distinguish between militant proxies and those enabling them. The first phase involved intelligence-led airstrikes targeting at least 7 militant camps in Nangarhar and Paktika provinces. Pakistan described these as precise operations designed to dismantle terror infrastructure. But the operation quickly expanded. According to official briefings, Pakistan targeted major Afghan Taliban military formations, including the 313 Central Corps, the 201 Selab Corps, and the 205 Mazar-e-Sharif Brigade Headquarters. Strategic ammunition depots and intelligence facilities were struck. For the first time, operations reportedly reached deep into Afghan territory, including areas near Kabul and the Pule Charkhi military compound. Inter-Services Public Relations Director General Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhary later provided updated operational figures during a press briefing in Rawalpindi. He stated that Pakistani forces had effectively repulsed insurgents at 53 border locations. According to his figures, 274 Taliban insurgents were killed, over 400 injured, 73 border posts destroyed, 18 posts taken under Pakistani control, and 115 tanks used by insurgents destroyed. He emphasized that operations were conducted under Pakistan's right to self-defense and were intelligence-based to minimize civilian casualties. The DGISPR also delivered a direct warning. Any attack originating from Afghan soil would be met with retaliation against the Afghan Taliban regime. He framed the situation as a binary choice for Kabul. Choose between Pakistan or militant groups such as TTP, BLA, Daesh, and Al-Qaeda. Pakistan's military narrative positions the country as a bulwark against terrorism, not just for itself but for regional stability. From Islamabad's perspective, this conflict is no longer a border skirmish. It is a necessary correction to what it sees as a lopsided relationship. Decades of refugee hosting and economic transit, officials argue, were repaid with cross-border violence. The Afghan Taliban, however, view Pakistan's actions as violations of sovereignty. This creates a fundamental legal and political clash. Pakistan invokes Article 51 of the UN Charter, the right to self-defense. It argues that when a neighboring state allows its territory to be used for attacks, the victim state has the right to neutralize those threats. The border region is watching carefully. Iran and Russia have called for restraint, especially during Ramadan. Escalation along the During line, the international border risks destabilizing trade routes, refugee flows, and regional security architecture. Economically, continued conflict threatens transit trade through crossings like Turkham and Chaman. Afghanistan's dependence on Pakistani routes makes prolonged instability costly for both sides. But Islamabad's messaging suggests a clear red line has been crossed. Officials say the era of unilateral concessions is over. The strategic doctrine now appears to rest on three pillars. First, proactive neutralization of militant infrastructure across the border. Second, refusal to separate militant proxies from their alleged enablers. Third, redefinition of the western frontier as an active defensive perimeter rather than a reactive containment zone. Whether Operation Ghazab lil Haq achieves long-term stability depends on several variables. Will the Afghan Taliban decisively act against TTP? Will diplomatic mediation resume? Or will retaliation cycles deepen into sustained confrontation? For Pakistan, this operation is framed as existential defense. For Afghanistan's Taliban leadership, it is framed as a foreign intrusion. For the region, it is a historic inflection point. The coming weeks will determine whether this remains a contained military campaign or transforms into a prolonged and destabilizing conflict. One thing is certain, the security landscape of South Asia has shifted. This is Trending Daily. I am Makhdoom Shahabuddin. Stay informed, stay analytical, and we will continue to break down the developments shaping our region. See you in the next episode.